Welcome to the Two Money Guys podcast. I am Rob, the middle-aged money man, along with your money geek, Michael Dinich. It is going to be a frightful show. We are coming upon Halloween with the interview we have today. Gerald Webb, actor, filmmaker, producer. We also have a fear-based article as well as listener questions and the ultimate takeaway. And as we said, it's going to be a frightful show for everybody out there. Being the Halloween season, I was searching the internet for some frightful articles, seeing that there's some ghouls and ghosts going to be walking the streets this time of year, and came across this article in Forbes written by Stephanie Taylor Christenson entitled 6 Fear-Driven Money Moves That Sabotage Your Net Worth. Let's see what she says in this article. Basically, what she's saying is fear-based move number one would be keeping your assets in cash. And she's saying that this is sometimes an assume the worst mentality. Mentally can pan out. Financially, like that time you instituted a strict spending freeze in order to hit your rainy day fund goal. But when your financial pessimism turns you into an obsessive sock drawer saver, it's time to reframe your thinking. So instead of putting your money or your assets into investments or into accounts where they're going to make you money, she's saying you're putting them under the mattress or you're putting them in the sock drawer. So yeah, I pretty much can agree with her here where that's not going to do you any good. What do you think?
So that's one of those items that I've kind of seen in the financial services industry where they really kind of only present people with two options. You know, one of those options is to keep everything in cash, or the other option is to maybe go to the stock market and keep the money in things that represent risk. And the problem is some people just don't have the psychological kind of capability. I don't mean that in the way that they can't mentally handle it, but they're just personality wise, they're just not cut out for keeping their money at risk. And so because they might not necessarily know of any alternatives, they're forced to keep the money. They're forced to keep the money in someplace safe like cash, which doesn't earn anything. And there is a middle ground with investment opportunities that can earn nicer returns than cash, but not have the risk of the markets. And so I'd love to see the financial services industry talk about those options a little more often.
And what options would those be? Are you talking CDs? Are you talking high interest bearing, savings accounts? What do you suggest?
Well, it could be CDs, but the other thing too is I really like modified endowment contracts and fixed indexed annuities in those situations. Those type of contracts allow, if the markets go up, they allow you to get some interest that's linked to the market. However, if the market goes down, you're guaranteed to not lose any money. And they can be a great savings vehicle for people who are, maybe, kind of caught in the headlights and they're worried about what to do with the money. They don't want to risk it. This is an opportunity for them to get a little higher rates of return.
Yeah. And I think, when you're trying to make money quickly, that's probably the answer. And I think what Stephanie was trying to do here was basically point out the difference between keeping, her example was keeping $1,000 of cash in a jar and then putting $1,000 into a simple interest account that pays, say, 5% annually. And when you look at it at the end of 5 years, you're going to have $1,000 still in that jar, and you're going to have $1,276 in that account at the end of 5 years. So you made $276 really without doing anything. Now, in the end of 5 years, if you want to make more than $276, yeah, you're going to have to do a little more than just put it into an interest, an account that makes 5% interest, compounding interest. But yeah, I do agree with you. There is a fear of losing money You have to have that mentality when you invest that it could go either way. So fear-based move number 2 in her article is buying a house because everyone else is. So what she says is your slew of new homeowner friends have been gabbing nonstop about the rock bottom mortgage interest rates and how those deals may not last for long. So even though you haven't quite saved up for a 20% down payment, you're still worried that not capitalizing on this opportunity could mean you're stuck renting for the rest of your life. So this is basically keeping up with the Joneses, the old cliche. So your friends are all buying houses, and that means you want to buy one too, even though you don't really have the money. And, it comes down to the fact that if you need to rent for a little while longer before you get that 20%, then that's probably what you should do. I mean, there are scenarios, but that 20% down payment means a lot, especially in the PMI you're going to be paying. What do you think?
Well, I think that's another one of those things that comes from the industry. The realty industry has used that as a marketing tactic for a number of years. I remember before the financial crisis, commercials with realtors saying, you need to buy real estate because real estate prices are going to keep going up and up and up and up. And if you don't buy real estate now, you're going to miss out. During the financial crisis, the realtor commercials were, now's the best time in history to buy real estate. If you don't buy real estate now, you're never going to be able to buy real estate again at these, really low interest rates. I don't think I've ever seen a commercial from the real estate industry that says now isn't a great time to buy real estate, even though we all know that's the case. So it's not always the case. So I think the only thing we can agree on is if you're in the industry, if you're, you have something to sell, it's always the best time in history for someone to buy what you have to sell.
Yeah. Well, now's the best time to buy that bridge I always had to sell you.
Absolutely.
And your e-courses.
And the e-courses.
Number 6, putting the brakes on, taking a leap of faith. And she has calculated leap of faith in parentheses because you don't really want to take a blind leap of faith. So when she's saying leap of faith, she basically means either changing careers or launching your own business. And this is going to also take us into our interview today with Gerald Webb. It will tie in there perfectly, but it's scary. And this really goes into fear. It's scary to change your career path. It's scary to launch your own business if you want to be an entrepreneur. But in order to move forward, and if that's your dream, you have to do it. What do you think? What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I think absolutely. You have to move forward. I think one of the things is, fear. If fear is holding you back and preventing you from doing something, it's a bad thing. But I do think, ironically, I do think that people should have a little bit of fear and a little bit of worry. This is, and I know we touched on this issue sometimes when, in the past when we talked about, people pursuing fire. And, sometimes they're not necessarily thinking through all the things that could necessarily go wrong if they leave their employer early or prematurely and hope that they're going to turn their side hustle into a main gig, right? So I think you need to have a little bit of worry. And I think worry is important because worry keeps you from being complacent, and you should be asking yourself, what could go wrong, and then create a plan. So if those things that could go wrong do go wrong, you're okay. And then, once you thought that all out, then absolutely you should take those calculated leaps of faith.
Oh yeah. If you're not, one thing that I like to think is if you're not afraid to do something, then you're not doing the right thing. You should be afraid to do something in life. I mean, you should be afraid. If you're not afraid to do it, it's not the right thing for you, because that means that you truly want to do it and it's truly the right choice. All right. But you should have that calculation. You should have the contingency plan in place. I mean, you should definitely have thought things through. Don't just go blindly. Have a plan, have it thought out, have a business plan. If you're starting your own business, I mean, definitely have your ducks in a row. Don't just say, well, I'm up and quitting my job and I'll figure it out. Definitely have things in place before you do this. Well, that was a great article by Stephanie, especially for this spooky Halloween season to put financial fear in all of us. Let's move on to our interview with Gerald Webb. Coming up next.
So, Gerald, if you could, why don't you tell us a little bit, how did you get into acting and producing?
Oh, wow. The truth of it is I always on some level wanted to perform from when I was a little kid. I used to, like my dad had an old reel to reel and I would like get the microphone and tell stories and he would record it. And then I, was in my little school play when I was in sixth grade. And then I started breakdancing and rapping and DJing and doing a bunch of things that I didn't realize were all leading me in the direction of acting, but they were all me trying to find the right stage throughout the time that I was a child into my adulthood. And then I started I ended up being a DJ and doing very well as a DJ and traveling all over the place and representing huge companies like Pioneer and Panasonic and was having a great time. But I kind of realized that I wasn't really fully fulfilled. So I started over a period of probably 4 or 5 years kind of doing some soul searching, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do, because as much as I was having an amazing time, I realized that I didn't want to do that for 30 more years, let alone 5. So I started doing a bunch of soul searching, and this question kept coming up about acting. And when I was a kid, I used to watch Jeopardy, and I would watch Alex Trebek, and like I would repeat the questions, like I would literally parrot what he was saying, and I was like, wow, I could like host a talk show. And then I started like watching Peter Jennings, and I would like repeat the news as he was saying it, and I was like, I could do this. And then I'd see commercials and I'd be like, oh, wow, I could probably do that. But it didn't seem real because I lived in New Jersey, and in my mind, you could only be an actor if you lived in LA. And the idea at one point of living in LA was like an impossibility. And that was all these things that I put on myself that it was impossible. So then when I was going through that time period of doing some soul searching, I kind of realized that the biggest thing keeping me from trying to be an actor was I was fearful of being a failure. That I had a lot of success as a DJ and I owned a couple of companies, and that if I went out there and tried this big thing and it didn't work out, that I was going to be a failure. And anybody who knew me would have never described me as fearful. They would have said, no, you're bold. You go for what you want. I had a lot of drive, but deep down inside, I had this fear of being or looking like a failure. And finally, I just said, listen, I'm holding on to this whole DJ life, and it's cool, but it's not what I really want. Like, so even if I go to LA and fail, I'm losing something that I don't want anyway. So just go for what you want and figure it out. So, I moved to LA and started acting, and the first 3 months was terrible. And then I kind of got my bearings and humbled myself a lot. And then the momentum started. And, I've been fortunate for the better part of 10 years, 12 years to work consistently as an actor and filmmaker in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you moved out to LA, I mean, did you have any connections or any leads, or was it like kind of like what you see on, TV? You just packed everything up, got a bus ticket and head out to LA?
Yeah, well, I haven't been on a bus since I probably went to school, so I didn't do the bus thing, but I got on a plane and I actually shipped my car out. I pretty much I didn't have a lot of connections. It was a weird thing. I talked a little bit a moment ago about I had to humble myself because the first 3 months in LA were so rough. And, I had a really big profile as a DJ. I mean, I was on magazine covers and toured all over the place. And when I went to LA, I kind of thought that would open up doors for me. And, I got to LA and like nobody cared. Like, I mean, nobody, and not even, I was a pretty driven person. So if you told me no, I would take that as a challenge. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to convince you, or I'm going to go over you or around you. And I'm going to show you that no wasn't the right decision. And the problem with when I got to LA was nobody told me no. They just completely ignored me. So the first 3 months, like, yeah, if you hear no, at least you're getting some kind of human interaction and feedback. And I had no support in LA. So I got to LA and I knew like 3 or 4 people who lived in LA. And like the person I was staying with, their day job was they would go do disaster relief work. So I moved in and like 4 days later, she went to Thailand to deal with the tsunami, like disaster relief for like 2 months. And then a buddy of mine who was a singer, his name's Mike Hines. I was like, hey, Mike, I'm here. He's like, yeah, I'm moving to Vegas. Like literally this all happened the week I got there. So like the 4 or 5 people that I knew, I got there and everybody was gone. So now I'm there. Don't get me wrong. It was great because it's February and it's summertime and I'm going to Venice Beach every day. I live right near the beach. I'm going to Venice Beach every day and I'm playing basketball and I'm seeing the sun and beautiful people and I'm finally made this big move and I'm excited. And I realized that several weeks in that like nothing was going on with my career. I was mailing headshots out to agents and to auditions, wasn't getting any word back. I went to a couple places physically and walked in and tried to hand my thing across the desk and they were like, don't ever come in here like this. There's a box out on the curb. You could drop your headshot in that box. And like literally got yelled at. And I'm like, how rude, you know? But it's kind of the industry. There's so many people trying to get in. A big part of ultimately being successful is figuring it out and also staying long enough to make it through all of the hurdles you have to get in. And, so, you know, I'm dropping my photo in that box. I'm mailing stuff out and I'm not hearing anything. No auditions, no agents. And I, like I said, I was supplementing my how I felt about it because I was going to the beach every day and I was playing basketball and doing things that I liked. But, you know, all of a sudden I was like, wow, like I started thinking, like, did I make a mistake? Should I have not done this? Like, did I fail this fast? Like those were the questions that popped up. And, I started, like, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think I was actually starting to get a little depressed because on a daily basis, I wasn't talking to anybody. Like, I might stop at Starbucks or, you know, but I didn't have any friends to hang out with. I'd go out a little bit and try to meet people and it just wasn't working. And it was the exact opposite of everything. I was always like one of the centers of attention as a DJ. I knew everybody everywhere I went. And so one day I sat down and I said, okay, Gerald, you have to, and I talk to myself in the way that I'm talking now, because sometimes I think we need to be clear. We have to like call ourselves on our own BS. So when I have a conversation with myself like this, I'm like, it might just be mentally, but I'm like, all right, Gerald, you have to realize that you moved to a new place. You don't do what you did for your living before. You have very little experience at this. You can't expect anything. You have to start at the bottom and you have to humble yourself. And I said, okay. And, you know, I was able to do that because I did that in the DJ industry. I had done that before in other areas of my life. But because I'd had so much success, I kind of forgot about that. So I humbled myself. I took a piece of paper and on the left side, I put a line down the middle of the paper. And on the left side, I wrote everything that I knew I needed to do to help my acting career. The problem was all the stuff that I knew I needed to do required multiple steps that I had no clue on how to do them. So simple things like, I had headshots, but they were the style of Philadelphia. They were kind of black and white and when I look back, they were terrible. But I put new headshots. But then on the right side, I put everything that I didn't know what to do with my headshots. So what photographer, what printer, what do I wear? What's the style for LA headshots? What are they looking for? So for every item I put on the left side, I had 4 or 5, sometimes 2 or 3, sometimes 7 or 8 steps that I didn't really know what to do in LA. Well, when I got done making this list, the stuff I knew I needed to do was about a half a page long, and the stuff I didn't know what to do was about 3 pages long. So I said to myself, okay, every day you have to take at least one action on something on the left side of this list. Doesn't mean complete it. You just have to take an action on it. And if you do that, then you're doing what you came here to do and you can hold your head up high. So, every day that's what I did.
So, you know, looking back, because, you know, you shared some really good advice about how you got started, but, you know, looking back, is there a mistake that you made that you would have changed?
There's dozens, if not hundreds of mistakes. But the tricky part about it is there's mistakes that I made that I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't make that mistake. So it's really hard. We're all going to have things that we wish we did differently or got a different result. But it's really hard to say like, oh, I wish I could change this or that mistake. Yeah, there are some things that, maybe I would have done differently looking back, specific things. But in general, you have to be out on the field playing. And if you're out on the field playing, you are going to make mistakes. You are going to do things, and they may not be mistakes. They may just be growing pains. They may just be, it's really the process that you go out there. Like the truth of it is every actor fails generally more than they're successful because they go on 10 auditions, 20 auditions. Many people go on 100 auditions or more for every one role that they get. So some people could say, well, you failed 99 times to get that one role. But if that one role puts you on a TV series for the next 10 years, then you did okay. Or if that one role gets you your next 4 roles over the next year, then you did okay. It's just the process. So it's tricky. Could I go back and nitpick and say, yeah, I would have done this, I would have done that? I mean, there's simple, silly things. There's bigger decisions. Sure, I could do that. But the truth of it is, all of that has helped me learn, grow, and move to the space that I am. And without those missteps, failures, trials, errors, whatever you want to call them, there's no way I'd be as good at what I do now, as knowledgeable at what I do now. And I may not even be at the same level of success that I am now.
Oh, that's a great perspective. So when you're, before you're involved in acting and producing and you're a DJ, you probably looked in the industry and you had some ideas of what it was like, and then once you actually got involved in the industry, was there anything that you found that you thought was kind of surprising or maybe, the people that are on the outside of the industry as fans, watching that, maybe we take for granted?
I'm going to answer that for you in 1 second, but I want to go back to the failure thing really quickly because I just had a second thought on it. The more I live and I experience, the fear of failure may be the most debilitating thing on the planet for people in their lives. And it's the perception of failure. I think it paralyzes many people. It paralyzes me at times, even with the success that I've had. Like I want to direct, and one of my concerns with directing is me really having a great grasp of the technical side of camera. And I've been working and growing that as I work on our projects. I spend more time with the camera team and I read books and I go work on that. But one of the things that has held me back from directing is my, on some level, fear of not having enough technical experience specific to camera. So it's something that never goes away. It can come back, and you have to continue to kind of like look at it and go, okay, maybe I do fail, but if this is what I want, I have to take that challenge on. I have to kind of push through it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good life advice. I mean, we've all, I know I'm even guilty of that quite a few different times. Letting fear hold you back a little bit, because you're afraid you don't want to fail or you're afraid to be seen as a failure.
And the sad part is, in most cases, it's not a little bit. It's way bigger than most people realize.
Sure. Yeah, I believe that. How about you, Rob?
Absolutely. I mean, there's been times in my life where I've been wanting to do something, change in life, change in jobs, change in careers, and starting my own business. And it's just, like you said, the word paralyzing fits perfectly. I mean, you just can't. You just think that it's impossible and you can't move forward.
And we can waste days, weeks, years in that paralysis if we allow that to be the case. I mean, I'll be honest, like I wanted to move to LA when I was a teenager. I didn't move to LA till over a decade later. So, it can freeze you. And, like I said, the bad part is so many times we want that feeling to go away. We want that fear to go away. The truth of it is it may never go away and it's going to come back in some other form. But most of the time that fear isn't real. Now, may some elements of it become real at some point? Yeah, but why create a problem that doesn't really exist?
And I've thought about that. Yeah, I've thought about that. That's one of the things that I always try to think to myself is be in the moment. There, you can't control the future. The past is the past. You have to control what you can control, and that, educate yourself on what you're trying to do. Like you said, you read books, you hang out with the people who do the camera work. So you're trying to prepare yourself. But yeah, you can't fear the future because you don't know what the future is going to hold. You can prepare yourself the best you can and just go and do it.
So to your other question about, is there anything that surprised me? I think the biggest thing that surprises a lot of people that get involved in film and television is what most people think film and television is, or a career in film and television is completely the opposite of what it is. People think that it's making a lot of money and getting on red carpets and getting on TV and wearing fancy clothes and having accolades. And it is everything but that. Like, that's one small part of the result if you have a lot of success. And the truth of it is, the job of an actor is to literally go to all of your insecurities, your fears, your strengths, your loves, your hates, your losses, and almost ripping your soul apart and allowing people to see that. It's everything everybody else is scared of. Your job is to emotionally and mentally go to those places and then be comfortable enough to do that in a setting where other people get to see it. It takes a tremendous physical and emotional toll on you. I think you get stronger as you exercise that muscle, but people don't realize, like, if I get on stage and perform for 2 hours, that's like, I'd rather work a 10-hour day as a producer than, like, not rather, I'm just saying I'd be just as tired working a 10-hour day as a producer as I am getting on stage for 2 hours, if not maybe more tired from being on stage.
Yeah, since you're doing, you're writing, you're acting, you're producing, which of the three do you find most enjoyable?
I've always been a kind of had two hemispheres that worked well for me, the business side and the creative side. I think if I only did one, I'd be very unsatisfied, one or the other. So I actually like both. I really love acting and I really love producing. So I think I'll always have to do a little bit of both for me to find the fulfillment and the happiness that I want. And I also think from the business standpoint, with the state of the industry now, you have to be driving content if you really want to create a career these days. So I think it's important to do that for anybody out there, whether their budget is no money and they want to, break out their iPhones or their DSLR and kind of shoot their own little stuff, or if they have real budgets and they want to, they can go raise bigger money and go do full feature films or whatever. I think you kind of have to do both.
So you spent some time casting. So if someone was an aspiring actor or actress, and what could a person do that was starting out, wanting to get in the industry, as someone was casting, what would they do to impress you?
Oh, to impress me? Yeah, at the end of the day, I think you have to be a professional, and being a professional manifests itself in a bunch of ways. Being a professional starts with being prepared. So generally how the process goes is we'll choose you for an audition. We'll send the notice out to your agent and say, hey, we'd like to see this person. Usually it's at least 24 hours, if not longer out. We'd like to see this person in 48 hours or 24 hours at 3 p.m. on Friday. So the first thing about being a professional is be on time. It sounds really simple, but be on time and actually be a little bit early. The second thing is, if we send you what we call sides, which is several pages of the script that depicts a scene that we want to have you audition with. We send you the sides, come in, let us, your performance will tell us if you've actually really read it, if you've actually sat down and done a bunch of work that is the work of the actor to internalize it and to make some great choices about how you're going to perform this piece. Don't come in when we sent the notice 48 hours ago and said, oh, I've been so busy, I haven't had time to really look at this. Then, come in the room, and I don't have to like you, but don't be rude. Be like, I hate to say it on any level, it's a job interview. So if you come in and you act like a jerk, or you come in and you act like some egomaniac, you're telling us that we don't want to work with you. Because if I can't live with you in the room for 5 or 10 minutes because you don't know how to be professional, what are you going to be like when you actually have the job and we have to live with you for 12 hours a day for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month?
Yeah. So professionally, you're killing it. So, You had a successful career as a DJ, then you went and you're acting, and now you're producing and you're writing, and it sounds like you're getting into directing. So, of all those accomplishments, what do you think you're most proud of?
Oh man, it's so weird, man, because for me it's all one journey, and I just want to always take the next step. I think probably the thing to give you an answer to your question that I'm probably most proud of is that even when I've had success, I've been willing to risk that to reach for what I thought was what was really next for me. And in many cases, I kind of take a step back in order to take that step forward. I took a huge step back financially when I moved to LA to pursue acting. I gave up the security of a very nice paycheck when I started, my company, Deinstitutionalized, with my business partner, Chris. And I think one of the things that I'm proudest of is that I'll keep kind of swinging, for the fences. I'll keep swinging for what I think is the right thing for me to do. And I believe it's for the right reasons. It's not because I want to be famous, and it's not because I just want to be rich. I mean, I want to make money like everybody else, and I like some of the benefits of having a profile, but the truth of it is I really value my privacy and my solitude too. So, I think that I keep getting up the bat and I keep swinging. And like I said, that there are times when that fear is still there. There's times when that fear is there on a regular basis. And I have to kind of find a way to shake it loose or say, hey, I appreciate that you're warning me of what you think you're scared of, but I'm going to go do what I'm choosing to do, not what I'm going to let fear or anything else dictate for me.
Now, tell us a little bit about your company. I know you launched that, and you're just wrapping up on a project. So, tell us about that.
Yeah, so Christopher Ray, he's a director and a producer. He and I worked together many years ago on his first feature film, a film called Reptosaurus. And we just hit it off and kept in touch. And then I was in a bunch of films for him, and then worked with his father, Fred Olin Ray, who's like a legendary B movie director. He does a lot of stuff for Lifetime and Sci-Fi Channel and things like that. And we just kept in touch. And then he started working at the asylum, and then created an opportunity for me to come help him on a film there that led to me working there as ultimately over several years becoming the director of talent there. And we just decided one day when we were both working, they were like, hey, we want to do a film of our own. So we took 3 weekends off. We took 3 Fridays off and then had the weekends off. And we went and made a movie on the weekends, basically. Yeah, it's called A House Is Not a Home. It's available at Walmart and a bunch of other places still. And it was before Get Out. It was kind of the first black horror film that wasn't a comedy in many, many years. And so we did that, and we were trying to come up with, a name for our company. And we were like, well, when you take off work for a weekend, do we call our company Weekend Pass Films, or do we call it Furlough Productions? And then I was like, wait a minute, we work for a company called the Asylum. It's like an institution. Let's call ourselves Deinstitutionalized. And I said it, and Chris started laughing, and then we started thinking about it, and I was like, there was a dual meaning, because we were like, listen, we want to stay friends. We want to make films, and we want to get kind of out of the Hollywood crap. So let's remain ourselves and do friends, get out of the Hollywood institution and do what we want to do. And specific to that film, because at that time, prior to Get Out, you weren't seeing serious black, horror films or serious horror films with a primarily African American cast. So it all kind of fit. So we made that name up and, came up with this cool straitjacket logo. That's our logo for our company. And we started a company, and we did that film, and then we were still working for other companies. And then, about a year and a half later, we had an opportunity to go do a film, and we said, okay, well, we're going to leave our jobs, and we're going to do this film, and we're going to raise some money for some more films. And fortunately, that's continued, and we've done multiple films that have gone to different distributors, including, multiple films that have gone to Lifetime Network, and films that have gone to Sci-Fi Network and things like that. And now we have a series that we just produced that's in post-production called Fracture. So we're just trying to kind of work and be filmmakers and put out good product. And
can you give us a little bit of I know you don't want to give anything away, but can you give us a little sneak peek, a little taste of of what that looks
Oh,
like?
sure. I mean, what's great about it is I think at the end of the day, Fracture is a coming of age story. It's a post-apocalyptic coming of age story about a group of college kids who go to this science center for kind of like a college trip. And while they're there, this apocalyptic level event happens, and they retreat. They retreat to a cave, and there's like an earthquake, and they get caught in this cave. And when they come to and dig their way out, what they think was maybe 12 hours or 24 hours, when they come out, they're in the same place, but everything looks like it's 50 years older. There's no people around. Everything's decayed. Overnight for them, it looks like, everything has been destroyed. And these kids have to,
Oh, wow.
kind of go from having regular concerns about, having cell phone service and, WhatsApp and, posting selfies on Instagram. They have to go from worrying about that to worrying about, like, how do we eat? How do we survive? This person is sick. How do we take care of them? And they end up encountering some other groups, and some of them are friendly and some of them are not friendly. And, you have a bunch of kids that are trying to, come to terms with what's happened, and they're forced to grow up overnight and also still trying to figure out how to get home. Um, so I kind of call it the Breakfast Club meets The Walking Dead and Mad Max. It's kind of the
I mean, that sounds
style of it.
awesome.
Yeah. And the cast is fantastic. We have, Brittany Curran from The Magicians is the lead on the show. And, Denise Richards came in and did a bunch of episodes for us. Yeah, everybody on the show is a series regular. All of our regulars are pretty much series regulars from other television shows. We were so fortunate, and that's part of what I was able to bring to it was all of my connections and casting throughout the years. I was able to really kind of help some actors who play some different types of roles than they're normally used to playing. We have Cody St. New from Teen Wolf. We have Camille Wimbush from the Bernie Mac Show. We have Leon Thomas III from Victorious. I mean, the cast is great. Max Adler from The Flash and Switched at Birth. I mean, the cast is just
And
absolutely
that
amazing.
sounds packed. I mean, that sounds like a really cool show.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you come back. When it's
Yeah.
when it's a little closer to release and everything. Hopefully you come back and spend some more time with us and talk about it. And 'cause that sounds awesome. Is there anything? I know we talked about your new show, and I mean that just sounds awesome, and we can't wait for that. So hopefully you come back and talk to us about that. Is there anything else? Any other upcoming projects you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, I have this really important project that if this is out before November 6th, I want to remind everybody to vote. It's really important. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but if this is out before November 6th, vote. If it's out after November 6th, always vote, please. Just let your voice be heard. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do is do that. I as far as like my career, I've been so fortunate. I've been in 100 plus films and television shows. There's always something that I'm in that's popping up. Um, I'm always grateful when people watch it, but I don't really spend a ton of time promoting it. We do have a couple of, I will say we have a horror movie that, we did through Deinstitutionalized that Chris and I produced and Chris directed, called Minutes to Midnight that just recently came out within the last month. So, that's at Walmart and Redbox and all kinds of places and, iTunes. And so please check that out. And then we have, this crazy, like, comedic, like, I guess it's a mockumentary called, They Want Dick. And, it stars Billy Ray Schaefer, from The Office, and and Richard Grieco, and there's a bunch of people, Bonnie Rotten's in it. And it's about this filmmaker who made he made this film that was so terrible that it became like a cult classic and he was famous. And, these people want to remake his film, and he's like down and out. He's got the mob coming after him. His wife is divorcing him. He's an alcoholic. He's down and out. And these people come to him and offer him money that'll get him out of all of his troubles, if they can remake his film. And what he doesn't know is they're going to make a porn version of his film. And the funny thing about it is, like, he's a terrible director to start, but now he's acting like his piece of art is this amazing piece of art. And it's kind of like just over the top slapstick, kind of crazy, funny, kind of thing.
So I have a quick question for you. I always like to kind of ask everybody about social media because, um, I think social media is a lot of, I think a lot of, younger people maybe use social media incorrectly. A lot of, older people like my co-host here might not really appreciate the value of social media. So, do you have, what a social media strategy? How has social media enhanced your career? Do you see any mistakes that people routinely make with social media?
Well, number one, you got to be careful because everything you say is preserved forever and, can be seen by everyone. So you have to be careful about what you say and what you want that to say about you. Sometimes you can make like what you think is a little, smart, snarky comment, and that's what people are going to decide to judge you completely by. So I think you have to be careful and responsible about it. I mean, I'm all over the board with my social media. I put up crazy videos of people falling down to sometimes I'll say something political. I'm trying to wean myself from being overly political. Um, and then other times I'm just like talking to fans or talking to friends, putting up pictures of places that I'm going to because I get to go do all kinds of cool stuff. Like as we speak, I'm in Miami Beach right now. Um,
Nice.
I'm kind of all over the board with it. But one of the things that I think really helped me social media wise early on was, I guess this is a good lesson. So, but now a lot of TV shows and their cast, they kind of live tweet when their show is on and kind of talk to the audience as the show is airing. Well, we started doing that when I worked for the asylum probably 7 or 8 years ago. And very few people, if anybody, was doing it at the time. So, we would have a movie premiere on Sci-Fi Channel and I would live tweet and tag the movie and talk about the movie as it was going on. And one early on, I was in a movie called Zombie Apocalypse with Ving Rhames and Taryn Manning and Eddie Steeples. Um, and
I actually saw that movie, and
cool.
I really liked it.
Well, well, the cool thing is, yeah, it was really cool for me because like I had been acting in a lot of Sci-Fi Channel movies, but like Ving was really kind of like A-list, at the time, and I got to do a scene with him, Taryn Manning, and Eddie Steeples, and like doing a scene with Ving was really cool, and I was like, all right, this is a milestone in my career. And the funny thing, so which was like it really was a milestone in my career. Well, so the movie goes to air on Sci-Fi. It was a Sci-Fi Channel original. So I start tweeting during the movie. And I'm only in like the opening scene of the movie, right? I have this big scene and then I die at the end of the scene. But it's cool because like Ving's in the scene and there's this really emotional thing where I'm dying and turning into a zombie with Taryn Manning, who's like my best friend. And, so I'm tweeting with the movie, like, yeah, Ving Rhames and and like this group of people on Twitter start like talking about the movie. And I was wearing like this plaid shirt that Wardrobe had given me. And they just start wailing on my shirt, talking about it's the ugliest shirt, that my character deserves to die for wearing it. Like, and it's just one snarky comment after another snarky comment, right? And so I just kind of took it in stride and was like, haha, like kind of interacted with them and didn't get upset. And it was a moment there where I was like, whoa, you're making fun of me. But then I was like, and come to find out, this is a group of people. They're actually called the Snark Alex on Twitter. And they like love science fiction and stuff. And they live tweet during a lot of TV shows. So I just kind of like had a sense of humor about it and tweeted with them. And then they didn't realize that it was actually me. And then when they realized it was me, they were like, oh my God. And they were like, have now become some of my biggest fans. And they live tweet with me on everything that I do. And one of them actually met somebody from Twitter and told them how much I interacted with the fans. And then Twitter called me and said, hey, we want to validate your account, verify your account. And it was because this guy named Kelly Toole had met somebody at a convention and that worked for Twitter and told them all about how much I interact with the fans. And they looked at it and went, yeah, this guy, he works in TV and he really does utilize our platform in a unique way. So, I think part of it is be genuine, connect with people, and have some fun with it. I'm trying more and more not to have Twitter wars or fights with people. If I don't agree with them, I'll kind of maybe put some facts up and move on. not to react to everything. Some people are gonna like you, some people aren't, some people are gonna be rude, some people are gonna be nice. Just, you have a lot of say and control over what you do with it. But it's an ever changing landscape and always a challenge. You know, everything from managing my followers to, I don't want anybody to ever feel brushed off, but I get tons of requests and I can't always address all of them. So I think you just have to try to navigate the challenge the best you can. Hopefully treat people with some level of respect and kindness, and you'll make some mistakes, but you'll learn from them and you'll move on.
So if you were going to act or produce a superhero movie, what would it be?
Oh, wow. That's an amazing question. That's really tough. I would love to find a female woman of color superhero and kind of do like a Black Panther version of that. Just because like Black Panther to me was such a watershed moment for minorities, and being, having those characters seen that way and addressed that way. So I would like to do that. We live in an era where, and it may even be, almost like imagine like a Justice League that was all like minority women that could go out and just like totally kick, like imagine 5 Wonder Womans that was a United Nations of Wonder Women that would just go out and kick behind. Because I want to make opportunities for people that are underserved, whether it be minorities and women and, in some ways, people with disabilities. So if I could do any kind of a superhero movie, I would want to do something that broke some kind of ground like that, as opposed to just making Superman 5 or Iron Man 19 or whatever else it would be.
What about any social media we can throw out there? Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so I'm at Gerald Webb, and it's GeraldWebb. At Gerald Webb on Twitter, at Gerald Webb on Instagram. Facebook is facebook.com/the Gerald Webb. So that's primarily it, man. I'm pretty much me on all of the little sites, and they can also check out at The Institutional. Deinstitutionalizedfilms.com is our website if they want to keep up with what we're doing. But we're really easy to find.
All right, it is now time for listener questions. We have a question that states, a friend that I haven't talked with for years recently called me offering her services as a financial planner. I honestly don't know what a financial planner even does, and I'm not sure I want someone I know personally to have such close access to my finances. Any advice? Well, I'm going to let Michael take most of this one because that's his area of expertise. But for me personally, if somebody you haven't talked to for a long time calls you out of the blue offering services to be a financial planner, that would probably throw up a red flag to me. And I don't usually let friends and finances mix, so it would be a little difficult for me to give up personal information about my finances to friends because you never know what happens after that friendship is over. Now, there are scenarios where friends can handle finances and everything else, but I tend to stay away from this subject with friends, as far as on an ongoing basis. There are certain scenarios where I may do it, but it's a touchy subject with a lot of people. So, I mean, what do you think, Michael? I kind of would shy away from this. I mean, you're giving up a lot of personal financial information, and this person just calls out of the blue, and you haven't talked to them recently. Now, I don't know the reason why they haven't talked in a while, so that could have something to do with it. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would actually, I actually have similar thoughts, and really, this is a couple-part question. One, because she doesn't really understand what a financial advisor does. So first, financial advisor, the answer to that just kind of quickly. So a financial advisor just kind of helps you, manage your money. So they might help you They might help you budget. They may help you say, reduce insurance costs, reduce your, income taxes, help you create a financial plan. So a good financial advisor can add a lot of a lot of value. So that's the one question, is what a financial advisor does. Now there's, financial advisors, kind of like a broad-based term, financial planner. There's a lot of different people that fall, kind of underneath that rubric. And I would be a little worried about, an advisor that was working for a firm that all of a sudden was cold calling on distant friends. That sounds to me a little bit kind of like the Facebook Huns that want to sell you keto coffee. So I'd be a little suspect of, the quality of advice you would get from a firm like that.
There's keto coffee? Awesome.
Yeah, the keto coffee, LuLaRoe, whatever, the essential oils, whatever, right? We've all gotten those. I'm sure you've at some point in time you've gotten a pitch for some former Facebook or high school friend, right, that wants to sell you something.
Yeah, they friend me every day.
Yeah. My wife gets them all the time. Some former high school, friend all of a sudden starts commenting on your pictures.
I'm just picturing LuLaRoe, that's all.
Yep. And then sure enough comes the LuLaRoe pitch, right? So I'd be a little bit worried about that they're in kind of one of the, the lower quality firms that kind of uses an MLM style model. But then also, again, I mirror your concern about working with a friend. I'm an advisor, and I actually made a conscious decision after one bad experience where I lost a friend doing advice for him. And it was the inverse of what you might think. We created a great plan for him, and he ended up being a miserable person, was coming in here every other day, was abusive to our office staff and everything. And finally, after, maybe like 2.5 weeks of bending over backwards to try to make him happy because he was a friend, I said, you got to take this and you got to go someplace else. And it ruined our relationship because I just I couldn't be friends with someone that was that abusive to everyone in the office staff.
So it was like, was it a situation where he said, oh, well, we're friends, so he kind of made more demands of you than he would have a normal financial planner or something like that?
Yeah, it was just the weirdest thing. It wasn't, and probably didn't help that it was like inherited money. So, he went from, not having really any money in the past to all of a sudden having some money. So he didn't really know, how to, manage it. It's a lot different when someone inherits money compared to making it themselves. Yeah. So, that was one end of it. And then I think too, not to make light of the amount, but like the way he treated everyone here in the office, you would have thought that, the amount of money that he had was, like they just won the lottery recently or something. I mean, it was, he really turned into, picture like a cross between a bridezilla and a diva. Right. I mean, talk about a Halloween nightmare. I mean, this guy just went, off the rails. It's sad too, because we were good friends with them, and, we see them in town all the time because we live in a small rural town, and, we kind of wave to each other and make small talk, and it's a shame. So after that, I made the decision that if some friend, if a friend says, hey, what do you think I should do? I'll say, hey, this is what I think you should do, but, go and do some, do it with somebody else. You just don't make enough money off, everyone kind of thinks the advisors, we make tons and tons and tons of money off of people, but, we don't make enough money, helping somebody that it's worth jeopardizing a friendship. And it's just too much at stake working with people. So I don't work with any of your family or any close friends.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hope that helps you out. And we hope you take that advice that a lot of times, not 100%, but a lot of times friends and money do not mix. All right, it is time for the takeaway portion of the show where we let you know what we learned today. Basically, this show is about fear. And what we know about fear is that we should use fear as a guide to know when you're on the right path. Fear is a good thing. It guides you. It lets you know that what you are about to do is important and a major life decision. And if you're afraid to do something, it usually means that it's the right thing to do as far as career jumping or becoming a business owner. It's usually the right thing to do because when you're feeling fear and you're afraid to do it, it's going to be a life-changing experience. Number 2, don't let fear hold you back. Fear, as Gerald Webb said in the interview, is paralyzing. Do not let fear paralyze you. You will be in the same spot forever and will never move forward in your life. Move forward. Get past the fear. And what we learned from our user question, don't mix money and friends. It never works out well in any situation. What do you think, Michael?
Well, I think that's good advice to live by. I mean, certainly, there's situations where, money and friends can mix and it could work out okay. It's just too much is at risk. So you want to be careful with that. And yeah, I think that people should use, people should, use fear to guide them and make sure that they're, the kind of stress test their plans and see, what could go wrong and then fortify it. But most importantly, don't let fear hold you back. Use that as an opportunity to tell you if something's a little scary, then it probably means you're on the right track.